Avery, and welcome to Grandma's Story Room. We are going to continue where we left off in Little House in the Big Woods. Ma and Mary and Laura had been making butter by churning it, and we learned about the buttermilk that they could drink, so we're going to continue from there. On Saturdays, when Mom made the bread, now remember, they couldn't buy bread at the grocery store. They had to make it. They each got a little piece of dough to make into a little loaf. They might have a bit of cookie dough, too, to make little cookies. And once Laura even made a pie in her patty pan. After the day's work was done, Ma sometimes cut paper dolls for them. She cut the dolls out of stiff white paper and drew the faces with a pencil. Then from bits of colored paper, she cut dresses and hats and ribbons and laces so that Laura and Mary could dress their paper dolls beautifully. When I was a little girl, I used to play with paper dolls too. Maybe Mom or Dad could look it up for you on Google so you could see some pictures of paper dolls. But the best time of all was at night when Pa came home. He would come in from his tramping through the snowy woods with tiny icicles hanging on the ends of his mustaches. He must have been cold. He would hang his gun on the wall over the door, throw off his fur cap and coat and mittens and calls, "Where's my little half pint of sweet cider half drunk up?" That was what he called Laura. That was Laura because she was so small. Laura and Mary would run to climb on his knees and sit there while he warmed himself up by the fire. And then he would put on his coat and cap and mittens again and go out to do the chores and bring in plenty of wood for the fire. Sometimes when Pa had walked his trap lines quickly because the traps were empty, or when he had gotten some game, that means animals or birds, sooner than usual, he would come home early. Then he would have time to play with Laura and Mary. One game they loved was called Mad Dog. Pa would run his fingers through his thick brown hair, standing it all up on end, and then he'd drop down on all fours, growling. And he would chase Laura and Mary all around the room, trying to get them cornered so they could not get away. They were quick at dodging and running, but once he caught them against the wood box behind the stove, they could not get past Pa, and there was no other way out. Then Pa growled so terribly, and his hair was so wild, and his eyes were so fierce, that it all seemed real. And Mary was so frightened that she couldn't move. But as Pa came nearer, Laura screamed! And with a wild leap and scramble, she went over the wood box, dragging Mary along with her. And at once, there was no Mad Dog at all. There was only Pa, standing there with his blue eyes shining, looking down at Laura. "Well," he said to her, "you're only a little half pint of cider half drunk up, but by jinx, you're as strong as a little French horse." "You shouldn't frighten the children so, Charles," Ma said. "Look how big their eyes are." Pa looked. He took down his fiddle, and he began to play and sing. "Yankee Doodle went to town. He wore his striped trousers. He swore he couldn't see the town. There were so many houses." And Laura and Mary forgot all about Mad Dog. "And then he saw some great big guns, big as a log of maple, and every time they turned them round, it took 2 yokes of cattle. And every time they fired them off, it took a horn of powder. It made a noise like father's gun, only a nation louder. And Pop was keeping time with his foot, and Laura clapped her hands to the music as he sang, I'll sing Yankee Doodle Do, and I'll sing Yankee Doodle. I'll sing Yankee Doodle Do, and I'll sing Yankee Doodle. And all alone in the wild big woods, and the snow, and the cold, the little log house was warm and snug and cozy. And Pa and Ma and Mary and Laura and baby Carrie were comfortable and happy there, especially at night. And then the fire was shining on the hearth. The cold and the dark and the wild beasts were all shut out. And Jack, the brindle bulldog, and Black Susan the cat, lay blinking at the flames in the fireplace. And Ma sat in her rocking chair, just like Grandma, sewing by the light of the lamp on the table. And the lamp was bright and shiny, and there was salt in the bottom of its glass bowl with the kerosene to keep the kerosene from exploding. And there were bits of red flannel among the salt to make it pretty. And it was pretty. Laura loved to look at that lamp with its glass chimney so clean and sparkling, with its yellow flame burning so steadily, and its bowl of clear kerosene colored red by the bits of flannel. And she loved to look at the fire in the fireplace, flickering and changing all the time, burning yellow and red and sometimes green above the logs, and hoovering blue over the golden and ruby coals. And then Pa told stories. When Laura and Mary begged him for a story, he would take them on his knees and tickle their faces with his long whiskers until they laughed out loud, and his eyes were blue and merry. And one night, Pa looked at Black Susan, stretching herself out before the fire and running her claws in and out, and he said, "Do you know that a panther is a cat? A great big wild cat?" "No," said Laura. "Well, it is," said Pa. "Just imagine Black Susan, bigger than Jack and fiercer than Jack when he growls. And then she would be just like a panther." And he settled Laura and Mary more comfortably on his knees. And he said, "I'll tell you about Grandpa and the panther." "Your grandpa?" Laura asked. "No, Laura, your grandpa, my father." "Oh," Laura said, and she wiggled closer against Pa's arm. She knew her grandpa. He lived far away in the big woods in a big log house. And then Pa began. And that's where we will stop today. And we will start next time on the story of Grandpa and the panther. Love you.